Start
Yeah.
recording.
Recording in progress. Okay.
So, but I don't know why you cannot see my picture. All of a sudden it disappeared and it was there until a minute ago.
Okay. So I'd like to call our monthly Zoom to order, and we're very lucky today because we have Omer Negev, who has really experienced, although not directly but indirectly, but closer than any of us, what the current situation is going on in Israel and Gaza and so on. And he's going to talk to us about it today. And Yossi will introduce him in a minute and ask him some leading questions. But before that, I want to take one moment to go to give you a preview of what's coming up next. On June 17th, in a month, we have Deidre Robinson and Matthew Home, who are active members of If Not Now, which really should be one word, not three as I've got it there. And If Not Now, you know, along with JVP, are two of the most active groups of young Jews, Jewish people fighting for equality and peace in Israel-Palestine. A month later, Yossi, our host, our semi-host today, will be talking about the Abraham Initiative. The Abraham Initiative is not the Abraham Accords, which are in the newspaper all the time. The Abraham Initiative is a Jewish Arab group in Israel that fights for Jewish Arab equality. So with that, I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to stop this page so that Yossi and everybody else can see everyone. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Yossi, who will introduce Omer. Yossi, it's your floor.
Okay.
Guys, before you do that, can you see me?
No, Omer, I wonder if you want to leave and come back or something, or your camera is always off.
It's just dark.
There is no video, Omer.
We had Omer, we had your video a little bit ago.
I know. I had until you start recording, it disappeared. Do you want me to sign out and sign in because it just was there and gone?
Yeah, I think that's. Yes, I think that's probably a good idea, don't you, Yossi?
Yes. So I'll wait until Omer will set. So we'll wait another minute. It's okay.
Hi, Yona.
Hi.
While we wait for Omer, so Eric Gordon, are you the basketball player? Oh, I see Omer. Sorry.
Okay.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Okay, hello everybody. I'm Yossi. I assume most of you know me. If not, I'll just say for those who don't know me that I'm originally from Israel, where I was a peace activist there and peace activist here. And now I'll go to Omer. So Omer, like me, was born in Israel. Omer Negev was born in the Negev. Is this anything to do with this, Omer?
It's have a lot to do with it.
Okay, very nice. Anyway, Omer was born in the Negev in 1963 in the kibbutz Nir Oz, one of those kibbutzim that have been under severe attack by the Hamas in October 7. And he was raised in a tent in a school called Ma'ale Hapsor, which I don't know too much about this. If you want to talk about this, where many of those 260 people, I'm sorry, I never mind what. Anyway, Omer have his own unique perspective of what happened in October 7, and I believe even before October 7. He's as I know him, he's a great guy with a lot of sensitivity to other people, not just to Jews, and specifically to the Palestinians. He served in IDF like everybody else, like most people in Israel, as a young man and young women. And he participated also in the First Lebanese War, which was in 1982. Currently, he lives in Los Angeles with his wife and 4 children. And I believe what I remember, Omer, from you is that you live in Los Angeles roughly around 40 or a little bit over 40 years, right?
35 years, 36.
35 years. Okay. So, Omer, it's flow of you for you now. And if you can start first, because you came from this kibbutz that was one of the horrendous victims. I did not say on October 7, it had 450 residents in Nir Oz, and 260 either have been killed or taken hostages by the Hamas. So it was tremendous loss. Over 50% were victimized in different way. Anyway, Omer, please tell us maybe about the time you have been in a kibbutz, and I believe you became kind of a peace activist with your view. So if you can share us this, and of course, if you share us, how did you feel on October 7 when you heard the terrible news? Okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you, guys, and good evening, everybody, to whom I know and don't. Hi, Amira. Thank you for waking up for that. So I was born in 1963 in kibbutz Nir Oz, actually in the city of Be'er Sheva, which is close, about 40 kilometers from Nir Oz. We didn't have hospital closer to that. And grew up in a place that was close to what you know as a settlement today in the West Bank, which serves the same purpose to protect the border of Israel and to establish them, establish more from the people who used to live there, and making it was all our land. And we grew up in a place and a feeling in a time that obviously everybody are Holocaust survival, second generation to Holocaust survival. A lot of this feeling around the atmosphere throughout the kibbutz, the feeling that we have to build the country and make it strong so it will not happen again. And I learned to work the land, and from a very young age to work the land and to really be part of a commune that was very, very special, very, very like a close family. Everybody was my parents. Every mom was, every woman was my mom. Every man was my dad. They felt this way. They act this way, and till this day, all those people are like family to me. Especially that I was one of the first people growing up over there, and growing up in the kibbutz, going to Ma'ale Absor later on, which was established as a school for all the neighborhood kibbutzis, and later on the moshavim. Some of them who were the one that got taken from the Gaza Strip back, Moshavei Katif, Gush Katif, and so on. And until 12th grade. Then came the military, draft into the army, served in Lebanon most of the time, on the border of Syria and Lebanon, protecting this in the small satellite we had over there. And when I released from the army, actually throughout the army, very, very concerned about what's going on in Lebanon, become very involved with the Shalom Achshav demonstration against the Lebanon war, even throughout the army, and trying to maintain it, to keep sanity in what's going on over there, which was very, very harsh. And I don't know if you guys want to hear more about the kibbutz or later on of what happened, but if not, we can go later on. But anyway, I moved out of the kibbutz for a short while, worked, picked some money up, went to travel, mostly in the United States, settled over here in the East Coast where my family are originally from, my mom's side, and then moved on to the West Coast, met my wife in Chicago and then in New York. She's from Mexico, by the way. Came over here, married her. We have 1 biological and 3 adopted kids in our family. And 36 years over here in United States citizens, and love this country and concerned about our where we're going from here. And then came October 7. And October 7 in the morning, I was woke up very, very early by my wife and told me about the situation. I right away tried to contact my family. We couldn't speak. I didn't know that we couldn't speak because they were in the safe room. They were holding the door, and for many hours we were trying to communicate before the battery ran out. And then later on, and then that was my father, my younger sister, her 2 kids, which are 12 and 9, and her husband, and the dog in a small safe room, and in another one, my other sister with 2 of the neighbors' kids. And that was for many hours, and then finally the army came 13 hours later, and all that through text, very broken communication. Very, we didn't know what's going on. We had no clue. We had just trying to reach everybody we can. My father, my brother was living in Zichron Yaakov, was trying to call his military friends, and everybody tried to, but there was to no avail. Nobody could get any answer of what's going on. And then in the evening already, when the army came in, we were finally able to see some of it. And then they were evacuated, and then we couldn't even tell anything what's going on until a few days later that the smoke cleared out, and that we figure out the devastation and the amount of loss we occurred, and how many people were taken away, and the scars that will never heal. And something amazing happened for me, to the whole kids, the whole kids of the parents of the kibbutz, the whole grandkids got together and created a huge group that have so many connections, and we all pull string from everywhere we can, and we started to support the people and started to get them all support we could, both monetary and psychological help, and if it was housing or places to go, or any place we could. And it was amazing to see all those people that have roots to the kibbutz, that just put themselves everything aside and dedicated to this mission until now, until this day. They're still doing it, and no stop for all the people that are still not with us, and that are kidnapped, whether they're not with us anymore or they are kidnapped away. And then few months later, I started to ask myself, why? Why did it happen? Why the people that supposedly we help, and we thought that we did, we really felt like we are peace activists, and we love them, but little that we know that we lived on their land. And in 1948, they were kicked out. And they were looking throughout the fence all these years and wondering why we are working their land and they're over there on the other side. And little that I know of what brainwash I went through, and I start to learn and see other media sources and interest in, and I just realized that I lived in a world that was parallel to reality. And these days, the most that occupy my mind is how to make Israel safe by stopping the occupation, which is so important to my heart. And I believe that that's the only way I can help Israel to somehow survive this turmoil. And even though people think how you went through all this and all your friends and family went through this devastation and you still feel this way, and I think more than ever I feel this way. More than ever I feel like that's the only way, the only solution, and the only possible way for us is to give the Palestinian the right to self-determination and have a neighbor that we can live side by side to. And that's my belief.
Thank you, Omer. Did you, as you said, you have a lot of still friends from Nir Oz. Did you have any discussion with them about your view and why, and how do you see it, and how is people listen to you, or was it harsh conversations? You know, like some of us from Israel know, have the experience of decent conversation and sometimes very harsh conversations. I wonder if you share with us, because it seemed like you are very critical of the Israeli government policy, and in some point many Israelis have difficulties to deal with this. Anyway, if you can share with us.
Yeah, to start with, it's very, very difficult to speak to them about the subject. Sort of I compare it to where the Russian started to attack Ukraine, and people in Russia couldn't hear what the relative here were saying. And I'm trying to speak to my brother, which is very, very educated, very, very and it's very difficult. Him and his wife and my cousins, and we try. My wife and I really, really try hard to do so. And from the places we can, from the people that already have some kind of tendency to see the other suffering. And it's hard because they don't see what we see over here. They just don't see the news the way we see them. They don't see the channels of media that we see here. And I know that even here in the mainstream media, it's very hard to see the truth. So we veer away from them. And regarding this, your remark about me not agreeing with the government is, I don't think the government is the problem. I think the government is a very small part of the biggest problem, which is the country that moved to the right more and more in the past 35 years, and to a place that people choose the government they want over there. And it's not going to change anything if Lapid or Gantz or Gallant going to be the president, the prime minister.
Okay, now, of course, I believe you were shocked and felt very sad about what happened in the kibbutzim. And then came the Israeli government response of bombing so intense in Gaza, and caused tens of thousands of killed, including many children. What was your feeling at those points? Because some Israelis, unfortunately, had a strong feeling of revenge, and they felt it's okay to do it. And currently, only minority of Israeli Jews think that this is a wrong way to do it. but what was your feeling when you heard about this and what you saw?
I was appalled. I'm still am. It's very, 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 very disturbing to see what's going on, to know that these are my people, my could be my relative, could be my, I know that they are, and that they're doing those atrocities, those, and I see those every day, because I watch not the mainstream media, so they're whether it's going to be Al Jazeera or it's going to be any other one, that's Democracy Now! That you guys know, in the Gray Zone, or any other channel that broadcasts those atrocities that the IDF taking themselves doing and broadcasting them around the world, criminating themselves in front of the International Court of Criminal Court, and I cannot take it. I cannot take it. Honestly, it's really, really disturbing. It's on my mind every day.
You know, I think many of you, most of you, all of you heard about the prosecutor from the World Court in Hague, the criminal court, asking the judges, 3 judges, to incriminate Netanyahu, Gallant, and 3 leaders of Hamas as the war criminals by engaging in a war crime and crime against humanity. The immediate reaction in Israel was, how dare you compare us to Hamas? This was the immediate reaction. When you heard this, what was your reaction? Because it's a tough one. It's the first time that Israeli leaders, after 57 years of occupation, for the first time, they are charged officially by the World Court of war crime and crime against humanity. And of course, the reaction was very rough. So what was your personal reaction to this when you heard this?
You know, for a long time, my most important desire was that Israel will get impunity, that Israel will take responsibility for what they're doing, and that when you do that, you can move forward to healing. And I think these are the first step that's going to make Israel understand that there is consequences. And for me, it's a good step, because I believe that if the citizens of Israel are not going to do it for themselves, the world must do it for the Palestinian. And I cannot stand that Israel is going to exist on the expense of any other population, or my house going to be built on anybody else's ruins. So I chose to believe that there is a way to live together, and I don't see it as a bad thing at all that the ICC is doing what they're doing. I think it's another way to force Israel to change course, and I think they must face it sooner than later.
Okay, I have a last question, then we'll open for everybody else to ask. We all know that United States government is the main power behind the Israeli government. Without their weapons, political cover in United Nations for so many years, and almost unconditional support. If you had the opportunity to meet with Biden, what are you going to ask him to do as far as the future or now or whatever? What will be your message to him that you want to tell him?
I wanted to tell him, it's amazing that you say that. I wrote to him few letters in the past few months, and I got a response from him, not from him, from his staffers, but I keep them with me. At this point, I will tell him to be humane. I will tell him what his wife tells him. You have to be humane. You have to see what's going on, and you cannot let it happen, and you cannot let it continue. And I'm talking about what's happening in Gaza, but as well as what's happening in the occupied territory. which is hidden from the sight, but it's nonetheless very, very disturbing. And I will tell him to stop listening to the lobbyists and to stop take money from IPAC and their relatives, and to start to consider the American people needs and wants ahead of what sort of he believes Israel needs and wants.
Okay, Jeff.
Yeah.
I think now maybe you take it from here and open for everybody to ask questions, make comments, or whatever.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Omer. Now it's finished my role, and now
Thank you,
go to Jeff. Okay, Jeff.
Okay, the floor is open for other questions. Before we start that, I just want to show a map, show where Omer's, this is, of course, Gaza, and that's where Omer is from, and that's about 1.5 kilometers. So that's all I wanted to show there. And so the floor is open for questions. We know how to raise our hand. Judy. I don't hear you, Judy.
Sorry. Okay. Did I miss something, or did he say, Omer, you say that you only turned around the whole on Israel just after October 7th, when you started to think about, why this happened? I mean, like in September, were you more appreciative of Israel? Or, did you just turn around like after October 7th?
Interesting question. So no, I was very, very active in the unacceptable organization where we demonstrate against judicial reform and try to overturn it. And I do believe that I was doing something that is the true fighting for democracy for everybody. On my time in Israel, I was always on the left side, always criticized of the government. I was participating in all the demonstration from the age of 6 on, in all Shalom Achshav, all activism of youth movement, but never that I knew that what I was fighting for was not for everybody. And that's what I meant to when I said so, that I start to learn and start to understand how little I knew and how much brainwashed I was, and how much information that was not clear to me, that people who grew up even in the United States knew about the Nakba. I never learned about it. We just never did. Nobody told us about it. Nobody told us what those ruins on the side of the roads and who they belong to. The place that we call the gallery, the White House, which you all see on the news probably again and again, we thought it was abandoned from I don't even know when, and it was a village. It was something, and then I realized all those things. And after that, my wife started to be very, very informative to me and helped me a lot in understanding, and start to follow on the Norm Finkelstein, and anyway, I see that many people want to ask questions, so I'm going to cut it short.
Thank you.
Okay. The hands that I see are Eric, then Michael Grossman, then Helen Sklar, and I'm at the end. So, Eric, you're next.
Yeah. Thank you, Omer. I haven't met you before, but meeting you now, I am extremely appreciative that you have come forward and are talking with us tonight. I like everything you're saying. You didn't use this exact term, but I think this is what you mean, that Israel is a basically a settler colonialist state, and I think that most people who are Israelis came there, out of fear. They were escaping. It was the only place they could go. their intentions going to Israel were relatively honest and sincere, and I don't think that they imagined that they were taking other people's land away just to establish their democratic state and their right to exist. But when I think about Israel's right to exist, I kind of feel no, Israel doesn't have a right to exist in its current state, in its current form. If after the peace agreement is signed, over Gaza and Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank just revert to the status quo ante, then this is not acceptable. And it wasn't acceptable before October 7th, and it won't be acceptable after a ceasefire is signed. But I think that it's not just the state of Israel that I think is the existential question. It's the existential question of Israelis, period. Their whole identity is as an Israeli, as mine is not whole, but mine is, most of ours is of an American. I go to the theater a lot and public events, and often the MC will say, "We are gathered here on the land of the San Gabrielino people and the unceded land." It was never ceded to white people, to the government. And it's a constant reminder. So it's something that more and more Americans, I think, are conscious of. It doesn't mean that we're, planning to hand the country back to the native people. And I don't think Israelis are going to do that either. But it seems to me there has to be some consciousness of the fact that, that this extreme form of Zionism, which was not the mainstream for many years, but was an undercurrent, has now come to the fore in full blossom, and we now see the fruits of this whole project, this more than century-old project, which some people said right from the beginning, we have to dominate by force and we have to kick out the Arabs. I mean, there were theorists of Zionism who said that openly, or wrote that at the time. So
is there a question? Or...
Okay, so the question is, can you foresee a day anytime soon when the mass of Israelis will come to terms with the fact that they stole this land kind of unintentionally, most of them, and they weren't aware of what they were doing, but they were propagandized and mesmerized by this idea of Jewish statehood, and basically stole the land and from other people and kicked most of them out. And could they even live with themselves, not to mention even with the Palestinians? I know I went on a bit, but I was trying to lay the groundwork of a future discussion.
I think that I don't know if I'm going to answer or anybody else. Jeff, shall I answer?
Yeah. Well, give your thought, and then after you're done, anyone else, especially the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Israelis and 1 Iraqi, might want to give their own opinion, or join in and make this into an open discussion. Because that's, what Eric is asking is, he pointed, is what will the Israelis ever, or when will the Israelis understand the situation?
It's a very, very good question. And first of all, I wanted to say, Eric, that I cannot agree more on any word that you say. It's word by word what I believe, what I know, and it's very harsh to see where Israel and where the mainstream came to. And it's very hard to see how they're going to go back to even consider give inch of a land away. especially with 800,000 settlers right now in the West Bank, the question of a two-state solution is no longer valuable. So I think it's now really up to the world to make it happen, and either do it like they did to the South African during the apartheid or embargo, and doing what they're doing in the ICC and Hague will change somehow the leaders and get them to understand, or it's just going to become another Lebanon as it is. I don't know if anybody aware, over 500,000 people left Israel today, to date. And they are the cream of the cream. They are the people that hold Israel together.
You mean the last 6 months?
Yep.
Wow, I don't know the aware of this.
Nobody
My
knows.
understanding is 500,000 Israelis left within a few weeks after October 7th. Is that correct, Omer?
Until today. That's what I know. The
Okay,
number
until
that's
today.
coming. Yeah. And these are permanent relocations. They are not temporary relocation. And those are just the people that we know and the people that we hear about, and not official yet, but many, many more, and many suicides, many a lot of death in the north, many evacuees. People will have to they have to drop somehow. People have to understand this, that Israel gonna go to a place that never before, and they have to stop it.
Do any other people want to join in on this conversation? Michael?
I think, Jeff, I think you have Helen was supposed to ask after Eric, no? This is what
but I thought we could, if other people, this is a serious issue, and if other people want to comment on
Mira, before she falling asleep.
I'm just waking up. I just can comment, I guess, from the point of view of somebody like Omer that grew up in Israel and has been very concerned for many years about the unsustainability of this and the immorality of what's going on in Israel. And I guess, and I don't know, just biographically, I grew up like Omer in Israel, to parents who came to Israel. Basically, they went in the war, they were in England, but they sought refuge in a place that they belong. And they were actually, I think, probably like Omer's family, they were socialist and believed in the ideals of what's going on. And I just say that I want to say, and my family has been in Israel. Maybe unlike Omer, my eyes opened up when I was in the army, and afterwards I did some research when I was in university, and I learned a lot of the history. But right now I'm in Israel and I'm seeing a society, and I think Gideon just came back, and sorry, I'm stuttering. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. But anyway, until October 7th, for many years, I've actually lost hope, because I saw Israel that was very strong, Israel that was energy independent, Israel that had high tech. I would come and go and see people living a very good life, much better standard of living from the people I know than here. And just this belief of somehow we can, there's the wall. Don't ever go there. I would get chided if I ever went beyond the wall. And, just a feeling that, okay, it's like that and we manage. This is not Israel of now. This is not the Israel I'm visiting now. It's a country in shock. Unfortunately, the shock is pushing a lot of people to the right. And it's kind of it's a trauma response, and also a response based on the increased brainwashing in the last 20 years. but there's also, I'm seeing also, and I guess I'm an eternal optimist, I'm seeing signs of optimism because people are waking up and seeing that, you know, this is not sustainable. In my family, I guess my sister's family, it's unheard of. Everybody was raised to be a fighter and all of that. And it's changing. I just spoke to my grandnephew who came back from Gaza, and he actually got himself out of there. He says that a lot of the soldiers are preferring to go to jail or to get a release on psychological reasons. And that is a population that you would never hear that before. So there are cracks. The problem is also that, and again, autobiographical, my mom is 92. This is not what she gave her life to. And I can see with her, she's super smart, but I can see with her also the fight between the values that she has and then just being in this, listening to Israeli TV. You are, you know, I can see the waves of the brainwash, and because she's so smart, she's coming back. So I know I'm going on and on, but then the last thing is that this is a part of Israeli society. You could say also the more well-off and maybe exposed to the West, exposed to and having self-interest of certain kinds. But it seems to also be careening towards something like a civil war, because there's really like, you know, between the West Bank, the craziness of the settlers that we see with stopping the tracks and all of that. There are very different worldviews. I see a lot of hope in the crack, actually. I think that maybe something new will come out. But I don't see a peaceful. I think it's going to be really traumatic, and I guess we're yet to see where it is. But I am happy that I think the seeds of consciousness are closer to the ground than they were before. I also sometimes, the last thing I want to say is, like, living in the United States, it's like somebody said, there's land acknowledgement and all of that. And there's obviously the realization that nobody is standing in line to give back the title of the house back to the indigenous rightful owners of the land, that there needs to be reparations and needs to be ways to find solutions. Israel is also an atomic superpower in some ways. So I'm just, I guess what I'm saying is I'm trying to be very realistic and know that, you know, we're not ever going to have absolute justice, but we can strive to it, and we can find ways going forward to find ways to make it just and to make reparations and build a place that's a place for life for everybody on the land and everybody that should get back to the land. That's it.
Thank you, Amira. Omer, do you want to comment on that? I certainly do.
I just a quick comment, since I have the stage. I just say that yeah, we have to definitely pay for 75 years of injustice, and we must give the Palestinian the right, and we must take responsibility, accountability, and impunity for all those years. And that's the only way for a true peace and a safe Israel.
Okay, I'm going to come back and comment on your last statement about justice, but Michael Grossman's been waiting a long time, so let him get in right now.
Okay, I'm going to try and not ramble on and on. Just give you a little bit of background. I'm friends with Ian Lustig, who I know some of you have had on previous programs. He's a political, okay. So Ian is a political scientist at the University of Pennsylvania, and his views are very much like what we're talking about today. I actually had lunch with him today and 2 other political scientists from major universities. And a couple of things that we talked about were this. It's very and my background is I'm an organizational consultant. And my doctoral dissertation was on working with difficult people. So my research is grounded in what do you do when you're dealing with difficult people? How do you deal with that? Okay. And my approach is a very cognitive behavioral therapy approach, which is you don't relitigate the past. The people who are angry, the Israelis, the Jews, all of us, I'm angry too. I come from a Holocaust survivor family. I have a lot of post-traumatic stress related to the Holocaust, but I've also worked through it. I was very taken back by what happened in October, but then I started thinking about what role do I play? What role do we play in the way that the Palestinians are reacting? Ian told me that he had dinner the other night with an Israeli couple who were very, very angry. And he said they didn't understand why Palestinians would be happy with what Hamas did. And he said to them, let me ask you a question. If your family was living in the ghetto during World War II and somebody escaped and killed a bunch of Germans, would you come back? And would people come back and be happy about that? Or would they say, oh, that's really a shame? Like, why would they hurt the Germans? They're such lovely people. Of course they would do that. And here's what I told Ian. I said, listen, my Hebrew school teacher was a commander in the Warsaw Ghetto Underground. And when I was 6 years old, he told us this story. He said one day he went to the fence and he gave a coat to a German guard in return for a loaf of bread. And he said, you know what he did? As soon as the guy put the coat on, he yelled out, there's an escape Jew. There's an escaped Jew. And the Germans shot the guy and killed him. He said, you don't think we were happy that that happened? You can't take people and stick them in a ghetto. And which this is what's ironic to me is how can we not look at ourselves? How can we tell the story of Exodus in Passover and get to the final passage and say, we were once slaves. We understand others who are slaves and we welcome them to our table and talk about that. But again, here's the one point I want to make 2 points. One, if you try to relitigate the past and talk about what responsibility we have, it's a carousel that doesn't end. You got to move on. And you have to talk about what are we going to do moving from here? Because I don't see, other than revenge, I don't know what the argument is on the other side. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of people that think we just need to kill all the Palestinians because Hamas is embedded in them, and then we'll be at peace. Will we be? Or their solution is send the 7.2 million Palestinians to another Arab nation. Where would that be? Iran is 1,100 miles from Tel Aviv. 1,100 miles. That's like from New York to Orlando. And the Jews do not feel safe. So the Palestinians would have to be further than that. Where would you logistically move 7.2 million people? Okay, so my final question is this. How does Biden do anything right now to end the war and not embolden the Republicans to come forward and say, see, Biden doesn't support Israel. He doesn't support Israel. He's a Jew hater. He always was a Jew hater. And you need to elect us because we're the only people that care about the Jews. And you know, that could be enough to tip things in the Republican favor and lose the election.
Thank you, Michael. And you know, what you just said fits in with what Amira said. She said you can't ever get complete justice. And what you're telling me is that you've got to move on. You've got to somehow put it behind you and have enough opportunity to move on and build a new life. And Amira had her hand up a second ago. Did you want to comment back on this?
I just wanted to ask Michael, because another thing that I'm seeing whenever I'm in Jewish spaces, I'm kind of struck by the genuine trauma feeling that I see. And people are really genuinely responding from trauma, generational trauma. And of course, the dissonance, what I see between that and the reality and all the filters that they have from years of being told how they should support Israel. So I just was, that's a question for Michael. Obviously, I think it can't be just cognitive. There's some very deep processes going on, and of course I think American Jewry is very influential. So what is the way to get to them, to get beyond that trauma response and into a more productive response?
I'm also a nurse by training, and I mainly have worked in fixing emergency departments, and I'm trained in critical incident stress debriefing, which is the psychological work you do with those soldiers you just talked about that are coming back from Gaza, and they have post-traumatic stress, and they need to talk about it, because if they don't talk about it, they're never going to get over the post-traumatic stress. So I did a group with my synagogue last week where that's what I did. I used those skills without talking about what I was doing, but provided the people an opportunity to talk about what they experienced in October. Like, what was it like for you? What did you feel like? How did you react to that? Because I reacted very viscerally to it also. But on at our services on Yom HaShoah, my rabbi put us into small groups because she realized the whole congregation, people couldn't talk. It was too volatile. So she put us in small groups, and she came into my group and she said, "Why aren't you talking?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, You're not talking. You're not telling your story." And I said, I'm too traumatized by this whole thing. And hearing more Holocaust stories tonight really triggered it for me. And she said, "But you have to talk. You have to talk. And she said, there's people in this small group that don't know your family history with the Holocaust, and you need to share that." And so I painfully shared it. I broke into tears at one point, but it was helpful. It was helpful, and that's what the process is. But for me, I don't know how to do that on more than one person at a time. And I was listening this morning to an interview with Estelle Frankel. I don't know if any of you know about Estelle Frankel. Estelle Frankel is a rabbi and a therapist, and she wrote a wonderful book called The Wisdom of Not Knowing. And she talks about all the Jewish foundations of the concept of doing things where you don't know where you're going. And one of the examples she gave was, think about all of our ancestors who left their countries in Europe and came to America, came to Israel. What did those people experience as they went into the unknown? And all she recommends is doing that, like embracing that we don't know what the future is going to be, but as as Amira said, I feel hopeful. She said she feels hopeful because the only way to get to something new is to stop doing the same thing. Because we're just doing the same thing over and over again. The revenge is not going to work. It's not logical.
Thank you, Michael. Yossi and Gideon, you both have your hands up. Do you want to, is this a new question or is this part of this conversation?
Well, for me, it's part of conversation, but Gideon was waiting for a while, so let him first.
Yeah, so one comment to Eric Gordon, really. As an Israeli and American, I don't have a lot of patience to hear people, American, lecture me about settler colonialism. You guys invented settler colonialism, and so don't lecture me when it comes to that. I'm more with what Michael said. We need to stop revenge, and this is also Palestinian. They are not going to get the full right of return. The Jewish people, Israeli people will never get all the land. Okay, that's the way we have to have solution. Okay, so I absolutely, my parents came to Israel from Aden in the 1920s, and they always said, hey, we came earlier than many of the Palestinians to Palestine, okay? And I grew up on this until, in my high school year when I started learning about other reality, and then Yom Kippur War completely changed my views of this. So I became active and etc. But I always knew, from my days at university, all of a sudden I heard about the Nakba, I heard about empty villages, I heard about names, how Kabri became Kabri, how other cities and area got, Hebrew's name all of a sudden. And so it took years for me to realize that. So the question for you, Omer, I remember talking to you in the unacceptable days, where the good old days almost, when you said, oh, it's no time to talk about occupation, you were telling me. But I'm looking at this, and what I see in Israel, there is people that change the way you change, and now all of a sudden talk about solutions. But there are people that turn, okay, somebody's talking, I'm sorry, I can't. But there are people that saying, got the other direction. So I've heard people saying, well, we can't trust them right now. Let's first of all destroy Hamas, and then let's talk about peace and solution. So how do you see this in the area, in the environment, your family and all this? How do you see this change? What can we do to talk to people? I'm trying to talk one-on-one with a lot of my family. What can we do to change people to start seeing that the revenge cycle that Israel and Palestinian need to stop, and I'm talking about just the Israeli right now. Yes. What can we do with family, friends? I had a lot of talks, and I see people are really fixated on revenge, or wipe the humiliation. I'm hearing a lot of words about humiliation. What we suffer is humiliation. What they did to us need to be erased. So what do you say? How can we talk to people?
For the Dorothy Leva Studios, besides as his day job,
there is a background noise.
Go on, Omer.
No, but there is a lot of people. There is a lot of background noise.
Okay.
Can you hear me? So, can you hear me, or is it?
Yes, we hear you.
Yeah. Okay. So, in regard to the question of what I believe we should tell the people, that even in our kibbutz, it's amazing how the people split in it, and some of the people of the kidnapped family wanted to go and block the aid trucks going into Gaza, and they so sure that will bring back their hostages. And some people are going to the street and demonstrating, and but nobody is sharing the feeling that I share, that I see the situation as one-sided conflict. And it's not a war over here. There is an oppressor and suppressor, and it's just a fact. And Israel need to just stand back and understand and stop what they're doing. And everybody have to take a deep breath and stop with this revenge feeling and understand that although we don't go back to the years and look back at the 75 years or 100 years of mistreating, we still have to think to ourselves that there is exactly half. There is 9 million or 8 million Israeli Jews and 8 million Palestinian. And if Israel want to split the land, it have to split 50-50. And if that's not okay with the Israeli, then they have to find another solution.
It looks like the Jeff is not there, so if you let me to react to this discussion that Eric started. You know, Eric, I know you for years, but I think there's some truth what Gideon says something that even when you go to an Israeli Jew and you're telling him you're a colonialist, this is a beginning and the end of the conversations, even with progressive Israelis. People don't want to hear this. They want to hear, what can you help to fix the conflict? Not because the accusation can go back to what is America. It's not a colonial this and this and this, but this is not very constructive conversation how to deal what's happening. And unfortunately, when you have a national conflict with so much animosity, so much bloodshed, big percentage of people on both sides, they became numb to the pain of the other side. And this is take many, many years to overcome this. I personally believe that the first step, you do a peace agreement between the governments, Israeli government and the Palestinian PLO, Palestinian Authority, or whatever will be the delegations. This is the first step of reconciliations, to try to educate people on the history. It's going to take a very long process. The true reconciliations in South Africa started after the fall of apartheid. Then when the bloodshed, when you stop the bleeding and you start having let's say normal relationship between countries, will be a state of Palestine. I'm not going to go now to this big argument, but I said state of Palestine, then we are in a completely different environment. There is no more war. There is no more settlers attacking everyday Palestinians. There is some kind of a reasonable relationship between countries, which there is no love affair. And I don't expect love affair. And I don't expect even passion. But this is where the beginning of start teaching in non-confrontational environment, the history, and start building a new generation. And I think this is what happened in Europe. Right after World War II in 1945, I can guarantee that most people in Europe, non-German, wanted to wipe out the German nation from the face of the earth. They could care less, especially those countries who suffer from the Nazi occupations. If Soviet Union, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, those who suffer tremendous number of losses, they wanted the German nation to be wiped out. They could care less, including the children and women. But
especially the Jews.
Especially
the Jews.
Yeah, right, good. You know, but I'm talking about Europe as an entity today. Took years and years of reconciliation between the nations in Europe, between German and the French, German and the Russian, German and the Polish. And it takes years. This is not, you do not change society with animosity overnight. It takes years. But the first step about anything else, first you create a peace environment as the first step. Then you start with a very long process of education where the first generation might not be open to it, but the next generation will be very much open. So if we look today at Europe, after 1,000 years of wars, they find a way to reconcile and live in peaceful coexistence and normal relationship. But I suggest for those on the left especially, please stop in talking in language. You are colonial, strange in this, because it's not helpful. I heard from people from Standing Together from Israel who fight like hell for peace and justice, that they have been told by some crowd in the United States, go back to Poland. You don't belong there. This is all Palestinians. This is very destructive approach to people who try to find solution.
Very Stein said it.
You
Go
know,
back to Poland.
so of course, and this guy actually is not from Poland. His parents came from one of the Arab countries, or Turkey, or whatever, or Bulgaria. It's what I'm trying to make a point is that if you want to help to fix it, the first thing, force our government in the US to engage very seriously, even to impose peace if necessary. Nothing wrong with imposed peace. Jimmy Carter imposed on Menachem Begin the peace with Egypt. Menachem Begin did not sign with his free will. I read the book called 13 Days in Camp David. This is what actually happened there. So who cares? He signed a peace agreement and the relationship with Egypt became more normalized. It's not perfect. It's not a love affair, but at least there is no bloodbath, no bloodshed there. And there is some level. Okay, this is my 2 cents. Maybe it was 5 cents on this. Anyway.
Thank you, Yossi. Omer, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, you wanted to have peace, but going back to October 6th, are they going to get Gaza off without, when it's a rim corridor cutting it in half, and the buffer zone that reduced it to maybe mere 18% of what it was, with the taking 30 years to rebuild it, and that was rough estimate a month ago, and the occupied territory of 800,000 settlers, and all the roads cut off so people cannot drive or cannot walk, and have apartheid in Israel. Where do we start with peace? Where is the peace started, and how much Israelis are willing to give to them to start negotiation?
No going back to October 6th.
Well, this is what I said, that maybe
no going back to October 6th.
To impose on the Israeli government that the occupation needs to come to an end. And the United States can play, but unfortunately, right now they're not willing to push this. So the Israeli government can continue with its policy. I don't see any other power in this world who can put pressure on Israel outside the United States, unfortunately. We live in the United States. This is our role to push our government.
Definitely.
This is our role here. I cannot tell Netanyahu from here what to do, but I can put pressure on our politicians, on the president or whatever, to take a fair, I don't even say just, a fair deal to stop it once and for all, you know. Okay.
I think Amira said the right thing. She said you can't ever get full justice. You need peace, and you have to give the people an opportunity to move forward.
Yes.
And that's really the story of the Holocaust, right? I mean, you know, the people who suffered or the families, the survivors of the Holocaust, they've never gotten full justice. What's full justice when you've lost even one family member? But they've gotten an opportunity in Israel or the United States or other countries, Britain, an opportunity to move forward, to put it behind them and move forward for a better life. Because that's what people want. They want a better life. But I do have a question for Omer that I've had this up for a long time. Nir Oz is only a kilometer or so from the Gaza border. How did people in Nir Oz, how did you deal with the border with Gaza and with Gazans as a child and as an adult? Did you play at the fence? Did you ignore the fence, or was that part of your life? And were Gazan people, workers in Israel, in Nir Oz? And what was it like to live right next to that border? And it's not like, I've lived next to the border of Canada, but they're not enemies. So tell me what it was like to live near that border, please.
Yes, so interesting enough, I left the kibbutz I went to the army in 1982. That was before the first Intifada. We had no borders. We had no fence. I could take my tractors and go, and we used to do it every Independence Day, drive our tractor from the kibbutz to the beach in Gush Katif. We used to go to Gaza. I had a friend over there. I spent overnight sleeping with them in Gaza, did shopping in Gaza. We usually drive through the center of Gaza because that was a much shorter drive to the kibbutz. And neighboring with them, the field did not have anything. I mean, it was a small fence, but nothing that you couldn't walk through. And so just like neighbors, but they were kicked out of the land, and I was the settler. So in our eyes, we believe that we are doing justice for them and that we are giving them employment and giving them the little benefit that we gave them. But in truth, we were the settlers, and we took the lands away from them.
So just say, Gush Katif existed at the time or not? Or this
It
became later?
existed in Gaza. It was Netiv HaSara.
2005.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, you're talking about 82. So I'm trying to remember when Gush Katif came into being.
Oh, it's been there until 2005.
No,
after-
when it started. He said we went there, but Nir Oz was outside, was Gush Katif was. So I'm trying to figure out, because I believe Gush Katif started this bad blood between they were thinking the refugee, hey, you kicked us out, now you bring more settlement and you try to kick us even from Gaza. I think that's part accelerated the process of the hatred. So I'm trying to remember if 82 you already because I served in Miluim in Gaza before I left Israel. So, and it was really at the time you saw some settlers come into being, but I don't remember the situation, what you're talking about.
Yeah, what were the Netiv HaSara and those Moshavim, Dekel and Chofit and Yamit and all those places that we took off in 2006? Were removed?
Removed only, so they were there in 82. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So no, the border were not hostile border. The only started later on in the Intifada where it's become more hostile.
Oh, interesting.
So the first Intifada is when things started to get a more firm border.
I have never seen the military presence that I've seen later on when I came to visit. There was nothing like this around our kibbutz. There were no army tanks or the drones, the helicopters above air. Never, ever when I was living over there. It was just peaceful.
Yeah.
Okay. Gideon, do you still have your hand up? Are you still asking questions? And
no, I do. I have one comment just to say I've heard me and Yossi talked about it multiple times about we need to put pressure on Biden, and Omer said it. And I'm saying I don't believe the American will save the Israeli from themselves. That's not going to happen. Israeli need to reach the peace. The American, Republican, Democrat, support Israel. It takes years for them to change their position. Even today, even after Biden, they still. So Israeli need to do it. So I'm not sitting here and believe that we were any chance to influence Biden or his, the people, successors will come after him. It's up to Israelis. I never, because I grew up in the peace movement in Israel after 73, and I've heard people saying only the American can influence Israel. And they will not do it. They will not make peace for people that don't want peace. Yes, it's up to us, the Israeli, even from here. I believe we need to work on the Israeli first, and then on the American, and then the rest of European later. It's up to us to do it.
Okay.
Okay. Amira?
I kind of want to ask Omer a question, because I think all of us are struggling with what is our place right now. And I, for instance, so when I was in my 20s and I found out the things that I found out, I was like, oh, there should just be a one-state democratic state where people have rights and all of that. So, but I'm older now, and I don't see it happening as a first state. I also don't see like engaging too much in what exactly the solution is. I guess my question to Omer is, obviously, I think you're engaged in consciousness raising of trying to expose people to the facts that we definitely were brainwashed about. I think there are words and realities that people have a wall, and like when you so just a question of how do you approach so people can actually hear and open their mind and open their heart. Is it just the tough truth? I think Israelis don't see the pictures from Gaza, the words of piety, all those cerebral arguments. Just like, what do you see as a way forward, or I guess, is it just what do you see as your role now in the way forward?
I struggle with it a lot. Every time I was very involved also in the Standing Together movement in the beginning over here. And my wife is very, very much resisting in it. She said that you cannot pat people on the back and tell them, hey, you're doing okay, and you have to, everything okay, and now we have to stand and do peace. No, there's not everything okay. There is occupation, and there is war crimes, and there is people have to understand, face reality, and deal with it. And I think that my conversation with my brother, with even my you should see my text messages between my 16-year-old boy to his cousin that now is just joined the army. Very, very much in the face, knowing what you're doing is wrong, what the world is looking at you and seeing is wrong, and what we are seeing where the world is thinking about Israel is saying that Republican or Democrat. Right now we have, I think, 56% among Republican, 87% of Democrats that against what Israel is doing in Gaza. So we are going to lose this election if Biden, and I think it's too late for him to change course. Did I answer your question, Amira?
I just wanted to add some story that I saw about the reconciliation and changing society. In 2019, I was in Poland with some friends from Israel, and so we went to the Jewish museum in Warsaw, very large museum. I was amazed how big is it. And suddenly I saw a group of teenagers, or white and blacks, but I heard a little bit different accent. I thought the first from US. So I approached them, I asked them, where are you from? They said, we from South Africa. I said, really? And I asked them, I told them, you know, here I see your white and blacks together. I assume it was not like this before. And they look at each other like, who is this guy, weird guy, asked us, like, they said, this is normal for us. Now, this is 2019. This was 17 and 18 years old teenagers, which is 20-something years after the fall of apartheid, or maybe 30 years. A new generation of young people in South Africa, white and black, see it's normal to be together as a delegation of high school students going to Poland to see what a Jewish museum. You know, my point is that here, after the fall of certain regime or fall of occupation and peace agreement, here you have an opportunity to create a new generations that can live in coexistence and see this is a normal way of living. But you take another generation to do it. So I just saw it, those group of teenagers, and I said, here we go. Look what something can be done, you know. Okay.
Amira again.
And if anybody else wants to talk, obviously I have a lot to do and a lot of curiosity about
Well, I'm going to ask the people who haven't said anything yet to talk, like Ellie and Yana and Asim. And
Yona is here?
Mhm.
Where's Yona?
Hi, Omer.
Where are you?
What do you mean,
Why
where
I
are you?
cannot see you?
Don't know.
Oh, here you are. Why you're not in the big photos?
Why
Hey.
did it not work?
I didn't see you
Amira.
until now.
Oh, I don't know. Amira and Gideon were speaking on my behalf, I think, so I didn't have anything to add.
So I do want to say something to Omer about, I don't want to argue and stuff, but I don't see standing together as a pat in the back, or I think it's about the struggle. And I also think that for me, it's an ecosystem out there where there's a lot of people kind of in some of the more, I don't want to say extreme, because like 90% of what like the kids in the encampment say, I actually think it's important. And I think there's an importance for the loudness. Like Gideon, I have a problem with the settler colonialist being just the conversation. I do think Zionism, of course, had a colonialist. It's part of the story. It's just not the whole story. But I think standing together positions itself as in Israel as a struggle for more just socialistic society. They do limit themselves to the 48 line. And I think standing together here, it's a conversation, because it's really just kind of flying by the seat of our pants, trying to figure out who we are and what is our role here. But it's about the struggle. It's not about saying, oh, great, now there's a situation and now let's just figure out how to make the most of it now that, you know, it's a really unfair balance as far as the power relations and all of that. So basically, I think it's a struggle. I think for me, it's just, I guess, just finding the right place to put my voice in so that it will affect them moving forward. And it's an internal struggle between, you know, saying everything that you think and everything that you think is immoral and horrible and all of that, and also trying to put forward an alternative and trying to open people's minds and hearts, and even to the possibility that there's a way forward that's not this side, this polarization, resistance by all means, settler colonialist Jews go back to Poland, to which I don't think is what the pro-Palestinian side is saying, except in the fringes. And the pro-Israelis that I saw at UCLA, where it's like we have to show them the Jewish might so that they'll know not to mess with us. So that was my, I don't know, my comment.
I don't know if it's for me to answer this. It's just that you know, when I don't see this movement growing anywhere without acknowledging and taking impunity for the past. So I think that yeah, standing together. We cannot hear you, Gideon.
Gideon, we can't hear you.
Sorry. So standing together in the US is not the same as the standing together in Israel, by the way. There is a lot more involvement in Palestinian in the standing together in Israel, and you can see it in demonstration. And there is no patting in the back. There definitely in Israel, you can see that they are looking at it, that believing joint struggle is better than everybody struggling by itself. So, but I wanted to say something else. It struck me what you said about your son and his cousin we're talking about, because my son, in his foolishness, decided to go back to Israel, volunteer to the military, was in Golani and was called on 7 on October. And for me, it created some kind of sense of urgency that even before I did not feel. Because now he just told me today on the phone that he's being called again in June to go up this time to Gaza. So obviously the sense of urgency that I feel is so strong right now that it, you know, so I think, I mean, I'm hoping your son will not be crazy and go and join the military. So
He will not.
okay, so that's good. But my son is lefty as me, you know, but I can see after 6 months and 5 months in the Miluim, he now turning a little bit to the right, you know, is moved, I mean, not to the right, but a little bit to the center. He's always was telling me, you're not realistic, but now I think something happened to him. So I need to go back to Israel and smack him on the head or something. But I can understand it right now because my son arguing with me, but he's also arguing with his cousin that are much more right-winger than me. So, but the sense of urgency right now is strong, a lot stronger. So anyway, just a comment.
Maybe I can add something because Gideon, I know you don't agree with me, but I still believe that the United States have a major role to play. And I'm telling you, the US society changed much faster today on these issues than the Israeli society.
Yeah.
The Israeli Jewish society have been damaged so much by these 57 years of occupations, moved so much to the right. I don't know what it will take, how many years of reversing this. But meantime, something neat. You know, I see much faster changes in can you hear me?
There's an echo.
From my end? No. Okay.
No, I did that and I've stopped it.
Okay.
But
my point is that there is an opportunity here now in the US. There is a very much changes here. Maybe not everybody agree the way the students marching and chanting, whatever, but it shows there is a break and big crack in the US society. And there is much faster change, at least in the Democratic Party, as far as it's okay to criticize the Israeli government, and it's no longer you have to be afraid of this, and to bring some idea to fix it. Nothing will happen overnight.
Small crack.
It doesn't matter, but it's much faster than the Israeli society. If you tell the Palestinian, wait until Israeli society will change its heart and be open to end occupation, I think I think in a competition with the changes here or there, right here where we are will go faster. But anyway, because we live here in the United States, as American citizens, we do have responsibility to tell our politicians what we think they should do. And they should not take a pass or escape from this conflict, because US is very much involved in this conflict all the way to their head. Very much. They are not a neutral force, and they are not a bystander who just watch what's happening. They very much have a responsibility, also very much negative responsibility of giving for so many years unconditional support for a right-wing government, not only of Netanyahu, before him and before and before. Under their watch, 600, 700,000 settlers moved to the West Bank under their watch, even though officially saying that settlements are illegal under international law. This is on the US State Department website, written there that the settlements are illegal, but they don't. But anyway, my point is that if we like it or not, we have responsibility, and because we have some knowledge of this and information, we can contribute. We should not be afraid to contact our politicians. Many of them are very ignorant what's happening there. They're just using some talking point that not necessarily they always understand. They're repeating it, but we have some kind of responsibility. So I know it's going to take a long time. Doesn't matter where, in Israel, here, but what other alternative we have?
I don't know. Are you trying to guilt the Jews in the US that they are to blame for what Israel is doing? I mean, that's nonsense to me.
I did not say this. Did I ever say this? I don't.
No, you're saying that the Jewish Israel, the American Jews supported the settlement. Some of them supported, not all of them.
No, I did not say this.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. Maybe I misunderstood
what I
you.
said is that under the US watch, 600,000 settlers moved to the West Bank under US watch. When I mean under US government watch, although officially it's written in the State Department website that these settlements are illegal, but they did not stop it. Yes. I didn't even mention American Jews. I said US government. Okay. This is what I mentioned.
Okay. I see Uri just joined, so maybe you want to say something, Uri.
Well, actually, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll give
the key. I mean, the protests in the United States have been working, because when in October, almost only about 10% of the elected Democrats were for what I'm going to just call peace. But now over half the elected Democrats are for peace. And so, and Biden has changed his position. So these protests are in fact working, and they will eventually work, I think, in Israel. But the key to making a change is to have the elite change. As long as my understanding of the Israeli political situation is that there are really, outside of Hadash, no peace, no peace party. There's got to be peace parties, and there's got to be Zionist peace parties, and so that should really be the focus: is getting is making enough noise to get the politicians to change. Anyway, Yona, you haven't said anything. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, Jeff. I think if you want the change to be quicker, we need to be united. I mean, all of us in the left side, on the left side, with practical goals. And as far as Omer goals, I think it's not reality. It's not the real thing real thing we can view. I would expect Omer and everyone to support standing together. I think what's going on and supporting Israelis standing together, and work together how to change people's minds. And us here, some of us in standing together and in unacceptable, really working on it, how to go to Jewish congregation, what to do, what to say to them, how to change their minds. And here I ask all of you to join this mission. I think it's a mission we all need to work on together. But be practical with what you ask.
Thank you. Omer, did you want to say something in this? Or Amira, your hand is up.
I have something to say, but if anybody else, I just want to say it's an ecosystem and it's a question, and I think there isn't just one thing. I mean, I think America is not just about what's right and wrong, not at all. There's also strategic things and stuff. So I think it's messy. There's no like one key. I think it is calling politicians so that they will feel the heat, and there is a change in the young generation, and there is a change in the young Jewish generations, with the Jewish establishment should start kind of coming to terms with. So I think there's no one way or to be active, and I really appreciate actually what everybody is doing. And the other hand, I think, it's like few, like shouting in the winds is not a strategy. So I think as much as the pain is, I want to get up in the morning and scream, I can't believe the numbers from Gaza. I can't see what I'm seeing from Gaza. I can't believe that people that suffered the Holocaust are doing this. Well, I see the normalcy here. Anyway, I'm just saying that there's a lot of ways to get at it. And on the other hand, working together, of course, and having a strategy and having goals is you get more impact. I also want to say that what really is optimistic for me is that there are a lot of Palestinians that are coming forward and looking for a different way and looking for dialogue and having hope. So maybe there's something, maybe I'm megalomaniac, or maybe there's something that's happening in the diaspora that can help the processes forward.
Judy?
Yeah, I just have a question, like, for the people who know about Israel, because some people here, a lot of people say, well, they don't really know what's going on in Israel because of all the censorship and just Channel 12 and everything, and they don't know. And then Chris Hedges says that's not true. They all know what's going on, and even though they know what's going on, they're all for it. So I'm just really interested. I mean, do people in Israel know about the starvation? Do they know that it's like 40,000 are dead? Do they know the extent of it, or they don't know the extent of it?
I can tell you from my last visit, I talked to my family, they don't know, and they don't believe the number they hear about. They say, oh, no, half of them are terrible. Only a few hundred, small number, not a few hundred, small number are really women. So they refuse to believe. And they don't see, the TV does not show picture. You have to go and search and find the Al Jazeera and look at it like I did. If you only watch Israeli TV and follow Israeli Twitter, you will not see anything about what's happening. And yeah, they don't know. I don't believe they know. I don't know what it is. They just say it.
It's all available, but it's not the mindset here. You do have the TV playing 24/7, and the panelists are all about our pain, our hostages, which I think is a very painful issue, but there isn't a place really for Palestinian pain. The Palestinian population within the 48 is really suppressed. Like you can say some innocuous thing and find yourself in jail for a year, or your neighbors protesting to remove you from your neighborhood. So that is, there is a lot of suppression. There are some, there's Amira Haas and Gidon Levy and all kinds of articles in Haaretz, but it's marginal. And even people that read Haaretz have a psychological block. So I don't know, how you, Chris Hodges, but what I'm seeing, I guess anecdotally, in the area that I'm in, that is relatively progressive, quote unquote, the
Starvation, don't,
extent
while stocking
my
all the trucks with food and stuff, I mean, they don't know about that and they don't care, or
I don't know.
so like I can tell you something that somebody told me. The people that are stopping the track are extremists, and that's a few tracks that are being stopped, and it's horrible, atrocious, and they're a disgrace. But food is still going in, and there is, from very intelligent people, I'm hearing that maybe there isn't such a starvation, and Hamas has taken all the food, and this and this and this and that. So the psychological ways to divert yourself from the enormity of the atrocities that are happening.
thank you.
Judy, in the beginning of the war in Vietnam, at least what I learned, most Americans in the beginning of the war had no clue what's happening there, because the American TV gave them very distorted picture of what's happening in Vietnam, until it was a turning point when soldiers start coming back and speaking about in a large number against the war and what's happening. Then the US TV start changing its attitude and giving more information. But it's very similar. When the United States invaded Iraq, the American TV reporters was embedded with American soldiers, and you only saw what American soldiers doing in very selective way, and you could have no idea what happened to the Iraqi people. And this is even more recent than the war in Vietnam. Unfortunately, a media of a country that engage of war, many of them close rank, and they stop being a journalist, they became a propaganda individuals for their country that engage in war. Unfortunately, it's happened not only to the Israeli, it happened to other countries when if you look at the Russian TV, you don't see any issue of the terrible things that's happened in Ukraine.
No, Russia, you would expect that in Russia and China, but I guess I just wouldn't expect that in Israel, but that's what,
No, even before October 7, if you watch, I watch the Israeli TV, I have one channel I can watch. There is not a single word about what's happening in the occupied territories. And I'm talking about before October 7. I had to go to another website called, in English, 972, or once in a while here on the Read in Haaretz, some two journalists, Gidon Levy and Amira Haas, but most Israeli Jews don't read Haaretz, really, most of them do not. So, but Israeli TV totally ignored. The only times they refer to the occupied territory when some Palestinians stab a settler or put a bomb somewhere. But what's happening there as far as the settlers, the army,
to mute.
nothing. So this is unfortunately
Somebody
it's
needs
keep
to
going.
mute.
Located and recreated, and it was
Oh,
Somebody
okay.
needs to mute.
existed until
We hear some radio or
Amira,
something.
it comes from you. You should mute. I see your
No.
microphone is jumping.
No, I just said something, but no, there's nothing in my background.
Oh,
Okay.
Jeff, it's not
We're
you.
near
Jeff?
the end of the hour. Ellie, how about you?
Jeff, it's not you. It's not. The sound is not coming from you, Jeff.
Well, I am trying to shut it off as best I can. But if you can, you have your hand up, Ellie.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Omer. Thank you for a very compelling presentation. I feel you. Just 2 cents about, collective denialism and conscious ignorance. It's not a new phenomenon. And Israelis, they have social media. They know what's happening. Vietnam, they didn't have social media. Sometimes not knowing is a function of not wanting to know and burying your head in the sand. There are those people that are actually ignorant, and then there's the multitudes that are consciously ignorant. That's my 2 cents.
Like Uri, you're next.
Uri?
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, my apologies. I got distracted. I came into the call very late, so I might be sounding things that you already discussed. But the French say the more things change, the more they stay the same. I think I've been in this conversation since at least 1967, if not before. So unfortunately, it looks like we've been there. It's kind of the sense of the deja vu, like Yogi Berra says, deja vu all over again. So I'm the pessimist amongst everybody, and the fact that I'm still involved shows that it's my defect, because that's why I was programmed, and why do I even care right now after not being there for I don't know how many years? But apparently there are certain things when listen, Yossi, we are a generation that got programmed in a particular way. And some of us cannot let go. I mean, I know I have a few other Israelis who couldn't care less. Says, I left, I don't care, let them kill each other. So a couple of points I wanted to mention that I don't know if I ever shared with you. I contend that when Bibi passed the citizen law, the national law in 2018, he did it by design. He wanted to get all the Americans, Jews, and all the other Jews all over in the world involved. He basically said, Israel is the national state of the Jews. So that every Jew in the world is responsible to what's happening in Israel. He did it by design. And most Jews don't realize how all of a sudden the whole world is pointing fingers at them. How come you're doing it? Oh, you're anti-Semite. Yeah, anti-Semitism has been around forever. But to the point that somebody says, do they see that in Israel? The people who want to find the information can find it. The Israeli propaganda as a whole, disguising it. They're basically telling all the Israelis, don't worry, they are bad, we can kill them. Besides, they deserve to be killed. Did you see what they did on Oct.7? So this is a way that the propaganda works. By the way, I call the Israeli army propaganda, I call it Kol Aram Yerushalayim. It used to be in the 50s and the 60s, Damascus and Cairo had speakers in Hebrew who were talking about the news in Israel, talking to the Israelis, and they had funny accents. And we used to make a joke of them, Kol Aram from Jerusalem, which was basically the propaganda machine. And that's exactly what the Israeli doing right now, at least since Oct.7, if not like in the last 30 or 40 years. They basically tell stories to the people to pacify and so get the support of 80% of the people who read only headlines, and they have to choose like you choose in a football team, either the blue or the red. Maccabi or Hapoel, that's the only choice you have. So when you have to choose a team, it's binary. So if you're Jewish, you're going with the Jewish team. I don't care. So unfortunately, it works. This is kind of like, now you mentioned something about son being in the army. I want to share something. 40 years ago, we were involved with the Foundation for Middle East Communication. And at that time, we got somebody, some of you might know the name, Moshe Amirav. He was a member of Merkaz HaLikud. He joined us and he says, you know what hit him? He says, I was called to do reserve duty in the paratroopers. And I did it with my son. And that woke him up to that maybe we're going up the wrong channel or the wrong way. And that was 40 years ago. So there is hope for some people to realize that they're going down a path that doesn't lead anywhere. But as I say to everybody, Atikva is a terrific anthem, but it does not come instead of some political program or action. So thanks for enduring me.
Okay, thank you, Uri. And the only person who hasn't spoken is Asim, and I guess Asim has dropped out of our little discussion. So I want to thank Omer for what has been a very stimulating conversation. And it's addressing very serious issues. And I thank you all. And we're coming back in a month to have, if not now, talk about these will be a group of Americans talking about how they are trying to work with this issue. So does anyone have any last word?
Only just to say thank you. Thank you to Omer. Thank you,
Okay,
Jeff.
thank you, Omer.
Yeah,
Thank you
same
to Omer
here.
and everyone. Thank you,
Well,
everyone.
thank you for the opportunity to speak. I really overwhelmed and appreciate it. And thank you guys. You're all people and inspiring people, and really honored to know you.
We are
Thank
honored
you,
as
Omer.
well.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Jeff.
you guys.